In 1971, Philip Zimbardo of Stanford University conducted an experiment. He randomly divided 24 ordinary college students into two groups, one to play prison guards, the other to play prisoners, and locked them in a simulated jail building in a campus basement. The experiment was originally planned to last 2 weeks, but on the sixth day, he was forced to shut everything down. The guards had begun spontaneously humiliating the prisoners, depriving them of sleep at night, forcing them into degrading acts. No one has told them to do this. They were simply playing a role, and then they became the role. This experiment tells us something deeply unsettling. Identity can be manufactured, and a manufactured identity is enough to make people commit real crimes. And when one identity is dramatized, amplified, and elevated above all other identities in the world, a war can begin. 10 years before that, in 1961, the philosopher Hannah Arendt attended the trial of Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann. She had expected to see a monstrous figure. What she saw was a mediocre, order-following bureaucrat. Eichmann had organized the transportation of millions of Jews to concentration camps, but he believed he was simply following orders, a good employee, and had never personally killed anyone. Arendt called this phenomenon the banality of evil. When a person is fully absorbed into a role, a system, a collective identity, they can stop thinking and then do anything. This brings me to today's subject, how war happens, examining through the lens of World War II, how collective identity can be exploited and weaponized. Based on a true story, a German high school teacher, during a week-long unit on authoritarianism, ran an experiment. He had students wearing matching white shirts stand and salute him, named the group the Wave, establish rules, and design a logo. His intention was to help students, who were already convinced that fascism was a thing of the past, understand through lived experiment how fascism can rise in any environment. What he didn't expect was that the experiment would spiral out of control. The students would genuinely fall in love with the sense of belonging. Wave members began excluding non-members, flaunting their identity, attacking dissidents, worshipping the teacher playing the dictator, and spontaneously distributing flyers across the city. Within 5 days, a complete authoritarian micro-society had formed inside the classroom. Then, at the moment when the teacher exposed the truth in front of all the students, one member fired a gun. The Wave takes a collective and critical perspective, showing how in the simplest power environment, a teacher and students, within an extremely short span of 5 days, a fanatical, exclusionary collective identity can be manufactured and exploited. The second film, Warriors of the Rainbow, Sadiq Bell. Set during the Japanese colonial period in Taiwan, the film spans from Japan's landing on the island all the way to Sadiq's chef Mona Rudel leading his people in an uprising against the Japanese. The event known as the Wushu Incident. The film follows the perspective of the Wushu tribe through inter-tribe conflicts, initial resistance to Japanese forces, occupation and forced assimilation, exploitation as labor, felling sacred trees to build Japanese structures, and finally, the Great Tribal Uprising. The film takes a collective and neutral perspective. On one hand, the director shows how Japanese imperialism exploits collective identity, both within its own rank and against its enemy. For its own conduct, it used the rhetoric of civilization to dress up colonial invasion, and constructed the legitimacy of its rules through loyalty to the empire. Against its enemy, it deliberately inflamed historical grudge between the tribes, making them slaughter each other. On the other hand, the film honestly confronts the tribe's own beliefs and sense of ethnic identity. It documents a deeply tragic moment in the history. After an uprising, when the warriors arranged for the women to retreat into the mountains to escape the fighting, the women chose to carry their food to the storehouse and then hand themselves collectively to reduce the men's food consumption and let them fight to the last. This scene is recorded in a manner that is both harrowing and epic, not condemnatory. The film's position is that collective identity is not merely the tool of the oppressors. The oppressed also rely on identity to mobilize for war. Collective identity can be simultaneously a source of both dignity and tragedy. Finally, let's turn to the captain, told from an individual and critical perspective. April 1945, the final week of World War II. A 19-year-old German deserter finds a captain's uniform in an abandoned car. No papers, no orders, no proof of any kind. But this one uniform allows him, invoking the authority of a special mission from the Führer, to obtain food, vehicles, and power. And no one dares truly question him. Eventually, he takes command of a makeshift camp, holding hundreds of prisoners and ordered to execution of hundreds of people. He had originally been someone who actively fled the collective. Yet he re-entered the role of captain and is ultimately held hostage by the identity. In the film, Hyro's identity dynamics demonstrate how even someone at the very bottom of the social hierarchy can actively exploit collective identification with an imperial system to seize power and personal advantage. But at the same time, this same system of identity is exploiting him in return. The price of playing the captain is that he must perform the cruelty a captain is expected to have. He orders execution not entirely because he wants to, but because not doing so would expose him. This system transforms him into his own instructor of execution. Ironically, when his true identity is finally revealed, the higher-ups do not immediately have him executed. They discover that this deserter has actually more brutal, more loyal, and more willing to serve the empire than any real officer. They formally commission him as a captain and send him into the front. I believe this subject remains vital today because this mechanism of collective identity requires no uniform, no empire. It can be an algorithmic, curate information bubble, the in-group and out-group of an online community, a single utterance of us and them. Hannah Arendt said that the antidote to the banality of evil is thinking, real, painful thinking that questions the very group we belong to.